In this video, we will practice graphing data on a Texas Instruments graphing calculator. First, I'm going to press the Stat button and then Edit, and I'm going to use this to enter my data. I'll use pretty simple data here, so I'll enter 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in L2, I'm going to put, oops, let me arrow over. I'm going to put some more fairly simple data. What I'm trying to do here is put roughly the square value. Okay, so I put the data in L1 and L2, and now I'm going to make a graph of that. So I'm going to go to Second, Stat Plot, and I'm going to turn plot number 1 on. So I hit Enter. I want a scatter plot. That's all set. I want L1 and L2. So this is all set up the way that I like it. And then I'm going to use a function called ZoomStat, number 9. You can either press number 9 or arrow down to it. I'll press the number 9, and there is my data. If I press the Trace button, I can see each of my data points. Now, sometimes in physics, what we need to do is we need to linearize the data, and we need to modify it. So I'm going to go back to Stat, Edit. And to linearize this data, I would need to square my x values. So in L3, I'm going to put in L1 squared. When I hit Enter, it will actually square my L1 values for me. So you can see that the square of 1 is 1, the square of 2 is 4, and so on. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like L3 to be my x values. So I'm going to go back to my stat plot. And now I'm going to change my x list to be L3. And I'm going to hit Zoom 9 again. And I can see that my data is straightened out. Now I'd like an equation for this data. So I am going to go back to the Stat menu, and I'm going to go to Calc, and I'm going to do a linear regression. Now, I have to tell the calculator which lists to do the regression on. In this case, I'd like to do the regression on L3 and L1. I can skip the frequency list. If I'd like to, I can store the regression equation in Y1, which I can find, let's see. Oops, I thought it was under the, oh, I'm sorry, it's under variables. My bad. So under variables, under Y variables, if I store this under Y1, what it will do is it will take the regression equation and it will actually store it in my Y equals menu. So now I'm going to hit Calculate. There's my linear regression. It did store that equation in Y1. And if I hit Graph again, I can see that the line is actually through the points. There's one more thing I'd like to try, and that is sometimes we'd like to see the R value for our regression. To turn this on, we need to go to Catalog. Then we need to scroll down to the D's. We need to turn the diagnostic on. So I'm going to hit that twice. I'm going to use the second entry button to call up old things that I'd entered. I'm going to redo my linear regression. And now I've got my linear regression with my R value. The correlation coefficient is a measure of how close the points are to lying in a perfectly straight line.